I never expected her to remember my name, let alone everything else. It started at my friend Daniel's house. I've been going there since high school. Same cracked driveway, same wind chime that never matched the breeze. By the time we were in our 20s, Daniel was barely home. Night shifts, random road trips, a life that moved faster than mine. But his mom was always there. Her name is Layla, mid-40s, maybe a little older. The kind of woman who didn't try to look young, but somehow did anyway. Not in a loud way, just steady, composed. The first time I noticed something shift was in the kitchen. Nothing dramatic, just late afternoon light through the blinds and the smell of coffee she reheated twice but never drank. "You're still taking it black, right?" she asked without turning around. I blinked. "Yeah." She nodded like that confirmed something important. It's strange. When you live alone long enough, you stop expecting to be remembered. My apartment is quiet in a way that hums. I leave the TV on sometimes just to have another voice breathing in the room. I type messages and erase them. Scroll through contacts. Pause over names. Don't press send. So when she remembered something small, it landed heavier than it should have. Daniel wasn't home that day either. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and leaned against the counter, asking about my new job. Not politely, like she was actually listening. "You look tired," she said. "I'm not." I answered too fast. She tilted her head slightly. Not arguing, just noticing. I caught myself watching her hands as she folded the towel again. Careful, precise, like she needed something to do with them. We talked about nothing. Groceries. The neighbor's dog that wouldn't stop barking. A broken porch light. Ordinary things. But there were these small pauses between sentences. Not awkward exactly, just aware. At one point, she laughed, soft, surprised at something I said, and her fingers brushed my wrist when she reached for the sugar I didn't use. It was nothing. Accidental. Still, I felt it long after. I started timing my visits differently. Not consciously. I'd tell myself I was dropping by to see Daniel, but I'd check if his car was gone first. I hated that about myself, the calculation. One evening, rain pressed against the windows and the power flickered. We were the only two in the house. She lit a candle like it was routine. "You don't have to sit in the dark alone," she said. "Storms make the house louder." I nodded and sat at the kitchen table while she dried plates that were already dry. "You ever get tired of it?" she asked. "Of what?" "Being the quiet one." I didn't answer right away. I folded a napkin in half. Then again, "Someone has to be," I said. She looked at me differently then. Not like Daniel's friend. Not like a kid she'd watched grow up. Just looked. I realized something uncomfortable in that silence. I wanted her to keep looking. When I left, she walked me to the door, even though she didn't need to. The rain had slowed to a mist. "Drive safe," she said, but softer than usual. I sat in my car longer than necessary. The house light upstairs stayed on after I pulled away. That night, I almost texted Daniel to ask if he'd be home tomorrow. I typed it, deleted it. At 12:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for a full minute before opening the message. It was her. "I found your hoodie in the laundry," it said. "You can pick it up tomorrow, if you want." There was nothing else. No emoji. No explanation. Just that. And I couldn't tell if she meant the hoodie or something neither of us had said out loud yet. I went back the next afternoon for the hoodie. I told myself that's all it was. Daniel still wasn't home. His car gone. The house quieter than usual, like it was waiting to see what I'd do. She opened the door before I knocked twice. "You always hesitate," she said lightly, stepping aside to let me in. "I don't. You do." A small smile. Not teasing, just observant. My hoodie was folded neatly on the arm of the couch. It smelled faintly like her detergent. Something clean, soft, not the cheap kind I used. I picked it up and held it a second too long. "You didn't have to wash it," I said. It was already in the machine. A pause. Felt rude not to. We stood there longer than necessary. The clock in the hallway ticked louder than it should have. "Tea?" she asked. I nodded. In the kitchen, she handed me a mug, and our fingers touched on purpose this time. Not dramatic, just slower. She didn't pull away immediately. Neither did I. We sat across from each other at the table, steam rising between us like a soft barrier. "You know," she said, staring into her cup, "when Daniel was your age, he barely talked to me." I swallowed. He still doesn't. She let out a quiet breath that could have been a laugh. It's different with you, she added, almost to herself. That sentence stayed in the air. I should have made a joke. Changed the subject. Asked about the weather. Instead, I said, different how? She looked up at me, then away. You listen, she said. Most people wait for their turn to speak. I didn't know what to do with that. No one had ever accused me of being anything worth noticing. She traced the rim of her mug with her thumb. A nervous habit, maybe. After my divorce, she began, then stopped. That's not your weight to carry. It's okay, I said quickly. Too quickly. She studied my face like she was deciding something. He left quietly. She continued. No shouting. No big betrayal. Just absence. I think that's worse. I felt something tighten in my chest. I knew about absence. About rooms that felt larger after someone stopped showing up. My dad did that, I heard myself say. I hadn't planned to. Her eyes softened, not with pity, with recognition. I'm sorry, she said. We sat in that shared understanding. No dramatic music, just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint sound of a car passing outside. That's when the risk finally felt real. This wasn't just harmless conversation. She was my friend's mother, a woman in her mid-40s, divorced, vulnerable in ways I didn't fully understand. And I was what? A guest, a placeholder, a distraction. I imagined Daniel walking in, imagined explaining why I was there again, imagined the look on his face. I shifted in my seat. We probably shouldn't what? She asked gently. I didn't finish the sentence. Instead, she stood and moved to the sink, rinsing a spoon that didn't need rinsing. I watched the slope of her shoulders, the quiet strength in the way she held herself together. You're allowed to be here, she said without turning around. You know that, right? The way she said it made it sound like she meant more than the house. When she turned back, she brushed a loose thread off my sleeve. A small gesture, motherly maybe, but her hand lingered. Not long, just long enough. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. And maybe because I wasn't sure what it would cost us if she kept looking. After that afternoon, something changed in the air between us. Not louder, just closer. I started coming by less. Not because I didn't want to, because I did. Too easily. That scared me. Daniel finally noticed. You've been ghosting, he said one night, tossing his keys onto the counter. Mom said you stopped by earlier this week. I froze for half a second. Too long. Yeah, just grab my hoodie. He nodded, distracted, already checking his phone. She talks about you, you know. Says you're the only one who listens to her stories. The way he said it. Casual. Unaware. My stomach tightened. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan, imagining conversations that hadn't happened. Imagining her voice softer than it should be. Imagining Daniel's face if he ever looked at us and saw what I was starting to feel. I told myself it was nothing. Then she texted. Not late. Not inappropriate. Just porch lights flickering again. You're better with ladders than I am. I stared at it. Typed. Deleted. Typed again. On my way. The evening was cool when I got there. She was standing outside, arms folded, sweater slipping off one shoulder like she hadn't noticed. Hey, she said. Hey. Simple word. Heavy landing. I climbed the ladder. Try to focus on the bulb. My hands felt less steady than usual. You don't have to keep fixing things for me, she called up softly. I don't mind. That's not what I meant. I looked down at her. She was watching me in that quiet way again, like she was measuring something. When I climbed down, we were closer than expected. The ladder still between us, but barely. It's working now, I said, unnecessarily. She nodded, didn't step back. For a second, neither did I. You've been distant, she said. I've just been busy. That sound. Not convinced. I rubbed the back of my neck, looked at the ground. It's probably better if I don't come around as much. The words felt rehearsed, like I'd practiced them in the shower. Her jaw shifted slightly. Not hurt, controlled. Better for who? I didn't answer, because the truth was, I didn't know what she wanted. Was I a distraction? A comfort? Something she'd regret in a year? And what did I want? Her hand on my sleeve again, her voice lowering when she said my name. The way she looked at me like I wasn't invisible. Daniel's car turned into the street. We both heard it. Her eyes flicked past me, then back. That tiny moment, shared panic, shared awareness. He's early, she said quietly. I stepped back this time. Too fast. The space between us, sudden and obvious. Daniel got out, waving. Hey, what are you two conspiring about? Your death trap of a porch light, she answered smoothly. He laughed. You fixing my house now? Just helping, I said. Helping. The word echoed longer than it should have. Inside, Daniel disappeared into his room. Music started playing faintly through the walls. She handed me a glass of water in the kitchen. Our fingers brushed again. Neither of us pulled away. Her eyes searched mine like she was about to say something irreversible. I don't want to make things complicated, she murmured. You're not, I said. But my voice wasn't steady. We stood there, close enough that I could feel her breath shift. If I leaned in just a little, her gaze dropped to my mouth, then back to my eyes. A half second, a decision forming. Footsteps down the hallway. We moved apart at the same time, and I realized how thin the line had become and how close we already were to crossing it. Do you like this personality? It happened on a Thursday. Ordinary. Too ordinary. Daniel had mentioned, offhand, that a woman from his gym might come by to pick him up for a movie. He said it in front of his mom, not thinking. She's cool, he added. You'd like her. I don't know why that bothered me. It shouldn't have. But when I showed up later that evening, stupid excuse about returning a screwdriver, I saw her through the living room window. Layla, standing near the couch, smoothing her hair in the reflection of the darkened TV. Not for me, for someone else's arrival. I almost turned around. Instead, I knocked. She opened the door with a small start, like she hadn't expected me. Oh, E. Her smile came a second late. I won't stay, I said quickly, holding up the screwdriver like proof of innocence. She stepped aside anyway. You can. Inside, the house felt staged. Lamps on. The faint smell of her perfume, subtle but deliberate. Daniel said someone's coming over, I muttered. Yes. A pause. A friend. Friend. The word scraped. We stood in the hallway, too close again. Always too close. You look. I started and stopped. Like I tried. She finished quietly. I nodded. She exhaled, shoulders lowering a fraction. I don't usually. I know. There was something fragile in that exchange. Like we'd both admitted more than we meant to. From down the hall, Daniel's voice floated out, laughing into his phone. Oblivious. She walked past me toward the back door. Can you come outside for a minute? The backyard was dim. Only the porch light I'd fixed casting a soft glow. Crickets loud in the silence. She wrapped her arms around herself. Not cold. Guarded. You shouldn't be here when she comes, she said. The sentence hit harder than expected. I was just leaving. That's not what I mean. I swallowed. Then what do you mean? She looked at me, really looked, and for the first time, I saw something close to panic. I don't like how it feels, she said softly. When you're here. When you're not. My chest tightened. That's not fair, I replied. Not angry. Just honest. You think I like it? Her lips parted slightly. Closed again. I'm his mother, she whispered. You're his friend. I know. Do you? The question wasn't sharp. It was tired. I stepped closer before I could think better of it. The space between us shrinking with every breath. I try not to come around, I said. I tell myself it's stupid, that it's just proximity, familiarity. But then you text. Or you look at me like what? She asked, barely audible. Like I matter. The words hung there. Exposed. No taking them back. Her eyes glossed over. Not tears exactly. Just something breaking open. You do, she said. Footsteps inside. A car door slamming in the driveway. Time tightening. She reached for my hand. Not fully. Just fingertips brushing my palm. If we keep standing like this, she murmured, something's going to happen. I didn't move away. Neither did she. The porch light flickered once above us. And in that suspended second, her breath close enough to feel my hand hovering at her waist. The only thing louder than the crickets was the question neither of us had the courage to ask. What are we about to ruin? She pulled away first. Not dramatically. Not with a speech. Just absence. The next week, no texts about broken lights. No casual "are you nearby?" Messages. When I stopped by to return a book Daniel had lent me, she stayed in her room. Mom's tired, Daniel said from the couch. eyes glued to the TV. She's been going out a lot lately. Going out. The phrase sat wrong. With who? I asked, aiming for neutral. He shrugged. I don't know. Some guy from her old work, I think. They've been grabbing dinner. Some guy. I nodded like that information didn't rearrange something inside me. That night, I replayed the backyard scene again. The porch light. Her hand almost holding mine. The way she said, if we keep standing like this. Maybe she'd gone inside and decided it was reckless. Immature. Cruel to her son. Maybe she'd woken up the next morning and seen me clearly. Not as a man. Just as a mistake. I typed her name into my phone. Nothing new. I started writing, "Are you okay?" Deleted it. Then, I didn't mean to make things complicated. Deleted that too. Days passed. I stopped driving down her street. Stopped asking Daniel about home. But absence is weight. It follows you. One afternoon, Daniel mentioned it casually. She's thinking about selling the house. My chest went hollow. What? Yeah. Says it's time. Too many memories. Too many memories. I imagined someone else sitting at that kitchen table. Someone else fixing that porch light. Someone else being looked at the way she'd looked at me. It shouldn't have mattered. But it did. I saw her unexpectedly at the grocery store 2 days later. In the produce aisle. Holding avocados like she was judging their sincerity. She looked up and froze. "Hi," she said. The space between us felt measured. "Careful. You've been busy," I said. "So have you." A lie on both sides. She adjusted her scarf, even though it wasn't cold. A small shield. "I think we got carried away," she said quietly. That night, I swallowed. Did we? Her eyes flicked to my mouth. Then away. "It's not just about us," she added. "I have a son. And I know who I am." I interrupted, softer than it sounded. She nodded, like she believed me. Like that was the problem. "There's someone I've been seeing," she said after a pause. "It's easier. Easier." The word felt like a door closing without slamming. I forced a small smile. That's good. It wasn't. We stood there too long. Two people pretending not to remember how close they'd come. "I should go," she said. "Yeah." She hesitated, like she might reach for my arm. She didn't. Instead, she walked away with her cart, disappearing into the checkout lines. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. That night, I drove past her house without meaning to. The porch light was steady now. No flique. A different car sat in the driveway. I parked down the street. Sat there with my phone in my hand. Typed. Was it ever real? I stared at the message. Read it twice. Then locked my screen. The engine idled for a few seconds longer before I drove off, leaving the question unsent and the porch light on for someone else. The house went up for sale 2 weeks later. Daniel mentioned it like it was nothing. Mom found a smaller place closer to her work. Makes sense. Makes sense. I told myself I wouldn't go over again. There was no role for me anymore. Not as a friend. Not as whatever I'd almost been. But the night before the open house, I drove there anyway. The porch light was on. Steady. Unflickering. I stood on the doorstep longer than I should have. Hand hovering. Rehearsing lines that sounded ridiculous the second I imagined saying them out loud. "Don't knock. Just leave." I knocked. She opened the door almost immediately, like she'd been nearby. Like she'd been expecting something. For a second, we just looked at each other. The house felt half empty behind her. Frames off the walls. A faint echo where furniture used to sit. "You're selling," I said, because it was easier than saying anything real. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" A small pause. "You stopped coming." "Fair." I stepped inside without being invited this time. The kitchen looked different without clutter. "Bora contas? No foldi dishtawes. No reated coffee." "I thought it would be easier," she said quietly, standing across from me. "Distance. Is it?" She didn't answer. The silence wasn't hostile. Just tired. "I saw the car," I said. "The other night." Her shoulders tightened slightly. "He's kind. Age-appropriate. Simple." The words felt rehearsed. "And?" I asked. "And I don't feel like I'm about to hurt someone I love." That landed. I stared at the empty space on the wall where a clock used to hang. You think I'd be hurt? I think Daniel would. We stood there with that truth between us. Heavy. Unavoidable. I nodded slowly. "I know." She stepped closer then. Not enough to touch. just enough to feel her warmth again. I didn't pull away because it wasn't real, she said. I pulled away because it was. The air shifted. I don't want to be someone's secret, I replied, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. And I don't want you choosing between me and your son. Her eyes softened, not with relief, with something like respect. I never wanted that, she whispered. Then what did you want? She exhaled, long honest. I wanted to feel seen again. And you did that. You still do. My throat tightened. You did that for me too, I admitted. There it was. No grand confession. Just fact. Footsteps upstairs. Daniel moving around in his room. A reminder. She reached for my hand this time and fully held it. Not hidden. Not rushed. If we keep going, she said gently, we don't just risk us. We risk him. I looked at our hands, at how natural they felt together. Then I let go. Not abruptly. Just carefully. I don't want to be the reason you lose your son, I said. She nodded, blinking back something unshed. And I don't want to be the reason you lose your friend. The cost settled in. Quiet. Final. We stood there a moment longer. No dramatic music. No te falling. Just two people who almost chose something else. She gave me a small, uneven smile. You'll be okay. I managed one back. So will you. At the door, she hesitated, then squeezed my fingers once more. Brief. Human. Okay, she said softly. Okay. And this time we both meant goodbye. Tom didn't fix everything. It just softened the edges. The house sold. Daniel left for college 2 years later. The porch light stopped flickering because someone else replaced it. Life kept moving the way it does, not dramatically, just steadily. We didn't speak for months after that night. Then one morning, at exactly 8:47 a.m., I found myself standing by the old bus stop bench. I hadn't planned it. My body just remembered. The bench had been repainted, dark green instead of chipped gray, but it still leaned slightly to the left. Still caught the morning sun at the same angle. I sat down with a black coffee in my hand and waited. I told myself I wasn't waiting for her. At 8:52, she walked around the corner. She noticed me immediately. Of course she did. Her pace slowed, but she didn't stop. She just approached like this was ordinary. Like we hadn't once stood in an empty kitchen choosing distance over desire. You're late, she said gently. You're 5 minutes early. Some things don't change. She sat beside me, not too close. The space between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was respectful. There was a thermos in her hand. Tea, she offered. I smiled, still trying to convert me, still failing. She poured some into the lid and handed it to me anyway. I took it. The warmth felt familiar. So, did she? We didn't talk about the house, or Daniel, or the man with the age-appropriate kindness. Life had unfolded the way it needed to. No one was broken. No bríðis vernd. Daniel had adjusted. He'd grown. He visited home less often, the way sons eventually do. The world widened for him. And somewhere in that widening, there was space again. We began small. Morning benches once a week. Then coffee refills after. Then quiet walks that didn't feel like secrets. No declarations. No dramatic confessions. Just presence. One evening, months later, we ended up back in her kitchen. A different kitchen now. Smaller. Brighter. The counters cluttered again. A sign she'd let herself live comfortably in a space. She handed me a mug without asking. Black. I leaned against the counter while she stood across from me, the way she had that night years ago. But this time, there was no tension. No upstairs footsteps. No one to protect from a truth that had already proven it could survive patience. You stayed, she said softly. So did you. And that was it. We didn't fall into each other. We stepped forward carefully, like people who understood the weight of what they were holding. Love didn't arrive like lightning. It arrived like routine, like knowing she would be at that bench at 8:47, like her pouring tea even though I'd never prefer it, like her keeping black coffee in the cabinet anyway. Life wasn't perfect. We still disagreed about small things. I still forgot to replace the cap on the toothpaste. She still overwatered the plants. Daniel still teased us both when he visited. But the house felt warm, grounded, earned. One morning, sitting on that familiar bench, she slipped her hand into mine without looking at me. Not tentative, not afraid, just certain. The sun hit the side of her face the way it always had. I realized I no longer felt like someone trespassing in her life. I felt like I belonged there. She leaned slightly toward me and said, almost amused, "You know, you were never late." I looked at her. She smiled in that quiet way that meant she understood something deeper. And I finally did too.